Hello, everybody. Welcome to the next episode of my developer interview series. This famous podcast, screencast crossover is in its fourth edition today, and I'm pretty happy to welcome Stan Lewis today. Hello, Stan.
Hi, how's it
How
going?
are you?
Great.
Perfect. You're sitting in the basement. It's dark. How late is it with you?
It's actually 8:30 in the morning, Eastern Standard.
Oh.
So,
That's very, very early. Thanks for waking up for me. I'm
yeah,
in
no
Munich,
problem.
so I'm already winding down almost. Um, as I said, nice to have you. You're a Red Hatter,
I am, yes.
and
I am.
you're working on all kinds of fancy stuff. You know what? Give me a 5-second rundown of what you are, what you're working on, and
Sure.
why.
Yep. I work at Red Hat. I came over as part of the FuseSource acquisition. I work on Fuse ESB and AMQ. Primarily, what I work on is the web consoles. So I wrote the first web console for Fuse ESB, the Fuse Management Console, and now I'm working on the hawtio web console, which has kind of replaced the old, Fuse Management Console. I also work a lot with Fabricate and Camel and CXF and all those other projects, but mostly I spend my time day to day working on hawtio stuff.
What exactly is that? I mean,
So,
hawtio sounds
yep,
hot.
it is hot. So hawtio is a HTML5 web console. It's written in TypeScript. It uses AngularJS. It's basically a fat client. Runs in your browser. Has a very lightweight backend. We've generally talked to JVMs using another open source project called Jalakia, which exposes JMX over HTTP in a nice, using a nice, easy to understand REST API. So primarily, what I work on is JavaScript.
Seriously? Come on, give me a rant about JavaScript.
I actually like JavaScript a lot, although now that I've spent a lot of time working with TypeScript. I tend to prefer that more. As folks know, JavaScript is a dynamic language, and one of the inherent problems is that you run into pitfalls where you can easily cause yourself issues at runtime by, forgetting to set a variable or messing up the type of a variable because it's not obvious looking at the code. You know, a variable could be a number and then it could be a string, or an object may or may not have a property. TypeScript gives you a nice way to declare interfaces and types for objects, and allows you to create an instance of an object and say it's okay, this is a number. So then later on in the code, if you try and assign a string to it, for example, you'll get a compile error, and you don't need to discover that the hard way at runtime when you're trying out your application.
So it basically helps you to not mess up with all the JavaScript magic
It
underneath.
it's it speeds things along. It definitely speeds things along. Because otherwise, yeah, you write a bunch of code, you go to test it, and you get a blank page, and then you spend the rest of the day, trying to figure out why you have a blank page.
Yeah, true. Are you also one of the guys who do all the fancy magic looking stuff? I mean, are you a visual person? Or
Yeah, I have brought in a lot of some of the graphs, and I do a lot of the CSS work and the layout of the app. Right now, with the project, I've kind of been more focused on functionality. I've been meaning to take some time to go through and redo some of the layouts and stuff. Um, but yeah, so I work a lot with the CSS and just the HTML templates and stuff.
do you guys work with acceptance tests? Or do you get some visual bugs like I don't like where the button is and can you move it around a bit?
We get a lot of feedback, and yeah, I mean, we can basically, with the nice thing with CSS, especially CSS3 and working in HTML5, is it's very, very powerful. So even if the layout doesn't fit what you want, you can still make it happen with CSS. I mean, worst case, you can position elements, either absolute or relative to their parents, so you can put them on the page wherever you like, really. Um, and as far as acceptance tests go, we do have some testing. We need to add quite a bit more, and that's something that we're hoping to do in the future. We have some, but we're kind of stuck in an older version of Angular at the moment. So we want to upgrade that, and then also then bring in more tests and stuff, because we have hit some regressions here and there.
Okay.
Um,
I mean, hawtio is open source like everything at Red Hat.
yeah,
Do you accept UX bugs when somebody feels like filing and testing?
sure.
So that's absolutely acceptable.
Absolutely. We have we've actually had quite a few folks from the community either give pull requests, which we take. We love pull requests, or any kind of feedback. In our bug tracker. That's fine. We'll work with you. If it's something that we may not want to do or whatever, we can always work out a compromise. You know, Sometimes not all ideas are good, but sometimes maybe they need to be tweaked a little bit.
Sure, absolutely. Okay, you basically told me a lot about that fancy console and that can connect to all kinds of REST services in the backend. What's the main problem it solves for the product portfolio? I mean, it's
Hmm.
built into a bunch of different products in Red Hat at the moment, right?
Right, yes. So the main problem it solves is that we wanted to give operators and developers a nice, easy to use console, so that they don't have to go onto the command line and start hacking away. It's something that we wanted to make it easy to use, so that a fairly wide range of users can easily jump into the application and be able to do a few things, like run processes or deploy profiles in Fabricate, or be able to examine stuff that's running in a camel context,
Yeah, I
things like
believe
that.
that we've seen some camel examples already on that series.
Hmm.
Question, do you want to just jump in and show a little bit and explain what you're using hawtio?
Yeah, why don't I do that? So let me share my
Go
screen.
ahead.
Let's see here. There, the whole thing. Okay, can you see my screen okay?
Works perfectly.
Excellent. All right. So first of all, let me switch over to console. So I'm going to just run a local build of the Fabricate distribution that hawtio runs in. So I've decided to be brave and just, try it out for the first time. So I'll just extract it from my Maven repository, cd into it, and I'm going to start it up using the command bin standalone. And what this does is it starts up the craft container, but it doesn't start up Fabric yet, because I want to start up Fabric using a particular command, so that it uses the host name I want it to, as opposed to detecting. Usually, it has a habit of detecting, my VPN host name or something like that. So now that it's booted up, I can go Fabric create, manual IP. That's my laptop's host name. So we'll let that boot up. And of course, it takes a minute. And when you give presentations, it actually takes longer, so that you think it's going to fail. So usually, I think what it used to do is, you'd want to wait a little bit until Fabric kind of restarts the shell, but I think that's actually been fixed.
So Fabric is basically the main use case for hawtio at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, basically Fabric, and then also being able to, I mean, it doesn't have to work with Fabric. For example, I
But you
run
said it's a
hawtio.
fat client, right? So I mean, you
It
could
is.
just run it in Chrome.
You can, yeah, we have a Chrome extension, so you can just install it in Chrome, and you can connect to any JVMs, and at the very least, you can. look at JMX. You know, so you can look
Right.
at all the attributes and you can invoke operations. Um, let's see. Let me run this command too, just to be on the safe side. What this command does, fabric profile download artifacts, is it makes sure that your graph system directory has all of the available jar files for all the profiles that are shipped in the box. That way, it should help speed up deploying stuff, you know, as we go through the demo. So I'll just let that run. That can just run. Um, but yeah, anyway, so for example, I have a Jenkins instance I run on my machine upstairs, and that does a daily build for me, so I don't have to do it on my laptop.
Okay.
And I run hawtio on there just and it actually works very nicely just as a way as a landing page to get to all the different applications that are deployed in that Tomcat instance.
Okay.
So I'm going to go ahead and log right into hawtio. Let me just I may have some stuff in my local store, so let me just go in here and reset this so we can have a nice clean slate. So this is what you would normally see when you start up the Fabricate distro and you go to you know, your hostname colon 8181 slash hotio. You get presented with a login screen. So running a development build, so it automatically sets up a user with admin.
Hmm.
So I'm going to go ahead and log in. And now you see the welcome screen. We're running with the Fabric 8 theme to hotio, which is a blue and white kind of deal. Um, you can change the theme if you like. I've got a few that there's a few that are built in. You can actually write a plugin to add one if you like.
Is
I'm going to
the
actually
documentation is on the hawtio website, right?
yes. Well, I have a few examples. Are the themes documented? Yeah, not really. The best thing to do is to copy one of the existing ones and start hacking away at the CSS. So if you
Okay.
fancy working on CSS, um, they're not too difficult to write. I've been slowly kind of massaging the CSS so that it's a little easier for folks to maybe get going to doing different themes. So for example, the Fabricate one is an add-on. Out of the box, we have the default theme, and then I have a dark theme, which is nice if
Cool.
you yes, if you get tired of looking at black on white. And then just for fun, I did a terminal theme as well. We won't
That's
stay in
fun.
this though. There's a few, yeah. So anyway, so I'll just go stay in the default theme here. So once you dropped in, you're in the fabric perspective. So this is kind of your overall view of your fabric. And then this little drop down over here can show you the local container perspective, which is that JVM that I started up on the command line. So when you flip over, it takes you over to the logs. Oh, you can see I've got some errors already. That's from running the download um, script, which doesn't surprise me. There's a couple of profiles that are still a work in progress.
And I
Um,
understood that correctly, that all the information that are displayed via that console here have some kind of JSON backend on the server.
that's right. In fact, this log view here is basically calling. I can show you the JMX operation it's calling to get it. So if we flip over to the JMX tab, it's calling on this IO Fabricate insight and being called log query. We go here to operations. Oh, of course it's not going to show any operations. That's interesting. Well, normally there should be operations listed there. And
Okay.
those are the ones it's using. So,
I think I got the basic idea behind it.
yes.
Question, just because I'm curious. I mean, I've been into Java EE and that kind of stuff in my past before I jumped into
Mhm.
integration technologies.
Sure.
Um, where's WebSockets in there? Is that all REST-based, or do you start
This is
playing around with the more modern things?
yeah. So far, this is all REST based. We're still on a Jalokia. I think does it may in the in like the in the very newer. development versions. I know he's planning on having WebSocket support, but as of yet, there wasn't WebSocket support in Jalokia when we started working on hawtio, and so we haven't brought that in yet. But there's definitely a lot of views where that would be super helpful. So right now everything's kind of polling based, and
Okay.
you can control how often it's polled. If you go into the preferences, it's right here on the main page. It's this update rate. We default to 5 seconds, but you can back it off if you need to, or even turn it off altogether. I'll just keep it on 5 seconds. But yeah, stuff like this where the logs, for example, would be fantastic with WebSockets. And actually, any kind of notifications, if I go over to the Fabric perspective and we look at containers and stuff, anytime this changes, it would be nice to just have a notification as opposed to right now we have a bit of code in place that does the polling, but it doesn't update the view unless something actually changes, that kind of stuff. So we can get rid of all that,
Yeah, the
which would be
worst
lovely.
the worst thing for me was while I've been playing around with Fuse and Fabricate is that it's kind of a lag. I mean, even if it's only 5 seconds per
Mhm.
default, you just don't get the real response time, right? So
Sure, yeah.
it feels like you're just a little bit behind. So WebSockets would be an absolute plus here.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with that. So
Absolutely.
let's run a couple things, and so we can see some of the other tabs in the container perspective. So first thing I'll do is run a broker. So go over to we'll use the new profiles page so I can boot up. So this is kind of what's going to be coming up in the Fuse 6.2 version. Is that we've kind of been revamping the profiles page to be more like a have an app store view.
Exciting.
Yeah, so it's a little more interesting. You can see, the different icons for all the different projects and stuff that we can deploy using Fabricate. I'm going to install a MQ broker, so I want to filter this by MQ. I'm going to just use the out-of-the-box configuration. So we want to deploy this MQ default profile. So to check your profile, and then just click deploy. This takes me over to the container page. I'm going to stick with the child container. Depending on what you have deployed in your Fabric server, the type, the available types, are going to be different. So if you have Docker running, for example, you can deploy a Docker profile to Fabric, and then Docker will show up here. Same with if you're running, say you're running on EC2 and you want to use JClouds, that would be a possible option here as well. I'm going to play it safe because I'm doing a demo, so we're just going to stick with child containers.
Which basically launches another JVM on the same machine, right?
That's right. Yep, exactly. So when we can take a look in PS and see it. So for that, you just need the name. We pre-fill this with your login.
So you're storing
The number of
passwords?
containers. We do store them in memory, but if
Okay,
you
fair enough.
refresh, for example, that password will be gone. So you would have to fill that back in. So that'll start up. It takes a second for Carafe to start up. So while that's booting, we can sit here and watch this. I can go over this. So the container view is also getting a bit of a makeover as well. So we have three different ways that you can kind of look at your container. One is that we group them by profiles that are running in your fabric. So here you can see that MQ defaults, now a profile that is running in your fabric, and that there's one container that's running. We also group them by location, and by that, for setting a location, you can click on one of these guys, and you can set specific location. So let's say I'm this guy's running upstairs. Assign that to that, and once we get it refreshed, it pops over to there. So if you have a bunch of different containers running in different, you know, data centers or whatnot, you can, or if you want to group them by logical application and stuff like that, you can do that, and then you get this nice overview of what's running where, and if the container's not running, you'll see that very quickly. And then we've got a standard list view of containers as well.
The
So now,
location information, that's all metadata which got save persisted into Fabricate magic, right?
That's right, exactly. So it's actually associated with container. So for example, if I go and click here to look at the details of this container, and we go over to the settings tab, you can see that we've set the location attribute on the container here. And if you want to change other stuff, you can change, the IP address. Any of these are kind of can be changed. This is
Hmm. Did I lose you?
global
Oh, there
resolver.
we are again.
I'm sorry.
Seems as if I lost you, almost.
Oh, okay.
Maybe it's downloading the internet in the meantime.
You still have my
Yeah, I can hardly understand you at the very moment, so
Hmm.
might even be better that we wrap up. If you can still hear me, you might show the website of the hawtio project so that people know
Okay.
where to go.
Yep. So the website is http://hot.io.
Okay, so people could actually contribute, check out the code, like as with all Red Hat projects that we're running and helping with.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Exactly.
oh yeah, that perfect. That looks really cool. What's next? When's the next release upcoming? Do you have an idea?
So we've been pushing out 1.4 releases pretty regularly. They kind of coincide at the moment with Fabricate releases. So Fabricate is, I believe, they've released a beta 4. Don't quote me on that. So
Hmm.
as we get functionality into hot.io to support Fabricate, we've been popping them out.
Okay,
Once we get a 1.2 release, we're hoping to do a hot.io 1.5 and upgrade, Angular and do some kind of housekeeping, so upgrade our Angular version and Bootstrap and all that. So that's coming a little bit further down the line.
perfect. That's quite a hot project to look at. Thanks a lot for your time. Really appreciate it talking to
Well,
you. I hope that we could redo that sometimes when we get a new project version out there, some more hot stuff. And
good.
yeah, thanks again. I wish
Alrighty.
you a successful day.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Yep, you too.